Hello all, in this session we are going to discuss about hypothesis testing. What is hypothesis testing? First of all, understand what is the term hypothesis. Hypothesis is a way of either accepting or rejecting a statement which is made without enough evidence. For an example, I just make a statement, the sun is going to rise in the east, but for which I have no data, there is no supporting data. I just simply made a statement, or the average life expectancy of an animal is around 100 years. When I just simply make a statement, there may be a lot of things involved in that. The statement may be true, may not be true. Okay, so we should be able to identify the validity of the statement, which is called hypothesis testing. Now, what are the various ways? Because why it is related to the data set, how it is important in data science, we are going to understand. First of all, let me explain you about the terms. Finally, by using an example, we completely will understand the hypothesis testing. Now, in the hypothesis testing, the key concepts are, the first one is the null hypothesis. What is null hypothesis? Null hypothesis simply makes a statement. Okay, for an example, there is here example is a statement of no effect or no difference. Simply, it just has got no effect. Simply, it's a statement. We don't know if there is a data available for that, if there is enough evidence for that. The statement that's been made, let us say I just got a data set. In the data set, there are several apples. Here, there is another statement in the same data set stating that the average weight of the apple is 150 grams. Here, just is a null hypothesis. Null hypothesis is given. Based on several parameters and factors, one statement has been made. This is called a null hypothesis. Null hypothesis, which is a statement of no effect or no difference. It just is a statement. Now we should be able to prove if the null hypothesis is true or not. Okay, now this is the first concept to understand. The second one is alternate hypothesis. Alternate hypothesis is the contradiction to the null hypothesis. If the null hypothesis states that the average weight of the apples is 150 grams, alternate hypothesis state, which is H1. Null hypothesis H0, alternate hypothesis is H1. H1 states that the average weight of the apples is not 150 grams. This is what the alternate hypothesis. Significance level. What do you mean by the significance level? It is denoted by alpha. Significance level is just the probability of rejecting the null hypothesis when actually it is true. For an example, the statement what I made with respect to the weight of the apples is the average weight of the apples is equal to 150 grams, right? Let us say that statement actually is true. Based on factors and parameters, I was able to conclude that the statement is true. The average weight of the apples after calculation, it's just identified to be, just proven to be 150 grams. But here the significance level alpha is the percentage of declining or denying null hypothesis when actually it is true. The chances of declining or rejecting null hypothesis when actually it is true. Let us say the average weight of the apples is actually 150 grams, but significance level alpha will calculate the probability of rejecting that statement. Now, significance level generally is in between 5% to 1%. Only 1% to 5% chance are the chances to reject whenever null hypothesis actually comes out to be true, which is called a significance level. Next thing is the test statistic. A value calculated from the sample data to test the hypothesis. What are the hypotheses to be tested? To start with the H0. We just need to find out the validity of the H0 or H1 otherwise. Now, what are the various ways to calculate the test hypothesis? Z-score, already we know what is Z-score, and T-score is another metric. Chi-square test statistics also is another metric to calculate this, the validity of the hypothesis. Next thing is the p-value. What is the p-value? The probability of observing the data assuming null hypothesis is true. That is, now I got a statement, I have a data set. What is the data? What is the statement? The statement is average weight of the apples is equal to 150 grams. Now, I just got this statement. Now I got a data set. Assuming that it is true, now I just need to get into the details of the data set. I hope you got the point. Now I get a data set. This is what my data set. Okay, let us say this is a data set of imported Shimla apples. Here, with respect to this, there is a statement made. What is that? Average weight is 150 grams. Okay, now this is with respect to this. Now, when I get this, I will have a perspective towards this, but I don't know if it is correct or not. Assuming that it is correct, if I watch this data set, if I observe this data set, that becomes a p-value. What is the p-value? See, if the p-value is less than or equal to alpha, we should be able to, reject H0. Null hypothesis must completely be rejected. Okay, but how to calculate the p-value, we're going to understand in this data set. What are the different steps in the hypothesis testing? First one is we need to state H0 and H1. Next thing is choose alpha. You know what is alpha? Then collect the data and calculate. I hope you do remember alpha, right? Alpha is the significance level. The probability of the rejecting the null hypothesis when actually it is true, which is given by alpha. Okay. Now, collect the data and calculate the test statistic. We should be able to calculate test statistics. We will understand how to calculate the test statistic. Find out the p-value or a critical value. We should also be able to find out p-value. What exactly is the p-value? P-value is the probability of observing the data, thinking that the null hypothesis may be true, assuming the null hypothesis is true. Okay. Okay, make a decision. Finally, we should be able to either reject or accept null hypothesis. Now, what is the example of hypothesis testing? We'll take a simple example, then we'll go through this hypothesis testing. The scenario is company claims their light bulbs last on an average of 1000 hours. You suspect they last less. A company claims that is an actual assumption. Let us say there will be some false promises from the automobile industry stating that average that you get from a car is 20 kilometers, or the mileage that you get out of a bike is around 80 kilometers. Obviously that may not be true, right? They will put a lot of restriction. There are a lot of constraints. You need to go at a constant velocity. There wouldn't be any hedges or ditches. Always you should be able to maintain the speed in between 40 to 45. That's it. You cannot vary more than that. So there are a lot of parameters. Now similarly, there is a company which manufactures bulbs. It states that the average, it lasts for 1000 hours on an average. But we suspect that. Now we need to go for the hypothesis testing, by which we will either be able to reject it or accept it. Now, what is this hypothesis testing? For which, let us take H0. What is H0? Null hypothesis. Here the mu is equal to 1000. What is 1000? The mean is 1000 hours. The average. Okay, the population mean, right? Mu. What is the mu? Mu is the population mean. The average of bulbs, all the bulbs, is equal to 1000 hours. Now, H1 is mu is less than 1000. The mean is less than 1000 hours. So, H0 null hypothesis is mean is 1000 hours. H1 mu is less than 1000 hours. Now, let us take the data. A sample of 30 bulbs. We don't need to get all the bulbs, right? We have taken a sample of 30 bulbs as a mean of 980 hours. Okay. We have collected the data in which we have collected 10 bulbs life expectancy. It is proven out to be 980 hours with a standard deviation of 50 hours. Give or take 50 hours. What is the standard deviation? It's give or take from the mean, right? 980 hours with a give or take 50 hours is the actual data that we do have in our hand. When we plot this in T calculation, test hypothesis calculation, we would either be able to reject or accept it by the outcome. Now, what is significance level? Significance level is 5%. Generally, it is in between 5% to 1%, right? Now, here we just have taken random alpha, which is equal to 0.05. Now, how to test statistics? Use the one sample t test. There is one time sample t test, which is equal to x complement minus mu. This is the, what do you call, x complement is 980. which is a average, okay, sample average. This mu is the actual average. Sample average, test average, what do we got? 980, and the actual average is 1000, divided by standard deviation square root of test size. What is the test size? Test size is equal to 30. So 980 minus 1000 divided by standard deviation is 50, and square root of n. What is the n? N here is the sample size, is equal to minus 2.19. Now what does it mean? Find the critical t value from the table. Alpha is equal to 0.5, d of f is equal to 29%. T critical is equal to minus 1.6999. Since t is equal to minus 219, which is less than minus 1.699, we need to reject H0. We should be able to reject H0 since it is less than minus 1.699. Okay, so this is how we will be able to test the hypothesis. Conclusion: the light bulbs last less than 1000 hours. What company stated? The company stated their light bulbs will last on an average 1000 hours. It actually is not true. Okay, so obviously it is not true. It's quite evident, right?